Mrs. Richardson looked at her son and her mouth dropped. She didn't know. She has. I said. Are you serious? Yeah, she said she knew a guy that would take me out for her. I wouldn't put it past her, Mrs. Richardson said. But I've never threatened to kill that girl. Now, there were times I had to put my hands on her to get her off me and to keep her from hitting me. But I've never kicked her ass or anything like that. You have to realize something, son. You may never see Liana again. Phil looked scared. The thought of him never seeing Liana again and not having her in his life again was breaking his heart. Yeah, you may run into her at the mall or something one day, Mrs. Richardson continued. But if she wants to be out of your life like that, she is long gone. You hear me? Phil plopped down onto the love seat, like a failed man giving up on life. She must be with the dude she's messing around with. That's who she's staying with. Bet you. That's why I can't find her. Phil was right. Liana was with the dude she was messing around with. My husband. Phil threw himself back against the love seat with a long, hard sigh, as if he was giving up on finding Liana. And that was the last thing I wanted him to do. Just let it go, Phil, Mrs. Richardson said. Just let her go on. Phil sighed and stood back up. His nervous energy wouldn't allow him to rest. His nerves were just as bad as mine. No, I am gonna find her. And she's going to pay me my money. Even if I have to take her to court to see Judge Judy, I'm getting my money, Mrs. Richardson said. I'll give you the money she owes you. Even if I have to follow her ass home from her job, I am going to find her, Mrs. Richardson said. Follow her home from her job? Boy, are you crazy? Phil gave it some thought and he looked at his mother, ashamed of himself. I'm sorry, Ma, but I'm not giving up. Not giving up on what? Getting money from her. Or getting her back. Phil was stuck. He didn't know how to answer the question. Or do you still love her? Of course he did. It was smeared all over his face along with the acne. How can I? After what she did. Phil's face crunched up into a mask of revenge. If she wants to be with this guy she just met, that's cool. Phil smiled to himself, with a dose of embarrassment. I met somebody myself. Matter of fact, I met her the other night at the fish market. That didn't surprise me at all. The fish market was popular in Clinton, Maryland and stayed crowded with people, eating and getting drunk. Cow could go in there, meet someone and get a date. And I want you to stay away from her, Phil, Mrs. Richardson said, raising her voice. Phil thought about it long and hard. He couldn't shake the anger off of him. He looked like he was ready to explode. Can't do that, Ma. Mrs. Richardson turned to me for answers. Has she been over to your house, Doris? To talk to you about it? Phil looked over at me and it made me more nervous than I was. I was getting tired of lying. I was ready to leave. Yes, she came over just before she moved in with this guy. When's the next time she's coming over? Phil asked. Because I know she's going over your house again. Phil, whatever it is that she owes you, if that's what it's going to cost to get rid of her, then it's worth it. It's worth every penny of that money to get rid of that girl. And if you can't handle any bills over there at your townhouse, you just come on home. I watched Phil shrink right into broken-hearted depression, right before my eyes. Your mother's right, Phil, I said, and I was starting to feel sorry for him. He just kept trying to mask his broken heart with that whole thing of him trying to get back the money she owed him. I mean, Liana may be my best friend. But all this lying, that's not right. Ma, I can handle the bills by myself, Phil said, angry. I'd be broke midway through the month, but I can handle the bills by myself. I just don't think it's right what she did. Packing up and leaving like that without saying anything. Leaving me hanging.